Hello and welcome to the Trending Now podcast for this Friday, January 26, 2024. I'm your host, Louie Butko, and thank you for joining us as we recap the week that was on Trending Now, which you can catch every Monday to Friday, 7 p.m., and again at 11:30 here on CHCH. Coming up on today's show. A federal judge says the Liberal government's use of the Emergency Act to clear convoy protesters that took over Ottawa for weeks in response to COVID-19 was unreasonable. What does this mean for Justin Trudeau? The host of Trending Now, Nicole Martin, has been following this story all week and joins us with the latest coming up. A huge week for the WWE starts with a historic deal with streaming giant Netflix and ends with their executive chairman Vince McMahon accused of sexual assault and trafficking in a new lawsuit. Trending Now reporter Manesa Dhanabalan was covering both these stories this week and will be by with more coming up later on. And the Oscar goes to, well, we don't know that, but we do know who are just honored just to be nominated. We'll break down some of the biggest surprises and snubs with our in-house entertainment expert and producer and co-creator of Trending Now, Laura Sebben, with that and more. But first, unjustified, unreasonable, unconstitutional. Federal judges ruled that the Liberal government's decision to invoke the Emergency Act in response to the Ottawa convoy protest violated the charter. To discuss that, Nicole Martin, and I wasn't expecting this news this week, but pretty big news out of Ottawa.
It's huge news. When you said unjust, though, I thought you were talking about the Bills game on Monday. Listen, it's been long. Or Sunday, I should say. Yeah. But Monday, I know you said, let's not talk about it. We're not speaking of it. Yeah. But it's long enough into the week now. I think we can address. No, it's not on the topics for the day.
I was off on Monday. And then I literally told people, don't worry about it. Don't talk to me about it. I'm upset as it is. It was a great season for the boys. A lot of injuries. They fought hard, changed the offensive coordinator. I am kind of going for Detroit now. My grandma, my 81, soon to be 82-year-old grandmother, it was born in Detroit, raised in Detroit, and she loves all the added economic impact that's happening with what's going on in Detroit with the Lions. So I'm going for the Lions the rest of the way. So
as much as I love, Taylor Swift and Kelsey, I like the Lions too. The fact that they've never been in a Super Bowl game, this is huge for them. Fingers crossed if they get there.
It is huge. I went to Bills Lions game. It's a beautiful stadium down there. But yeah, go Lions. I don't care about the 49ers at all. But let's get back to
derailment. I was like, I just need Louie's take
You
on
had
that.
to take a shot at me. It's fine. You saw football on my shirt, my Western sweater here. Let's talk about this Emergency Act because, like I said, a bit of a surprise to see, everything seemed like it was on the up and up unless you asked the convoy protesters. But what did you make of this week's news?
This is a huge moment, and I was able to speak with the two organizations who actually brought forward this case to federal court, and that's the Canadian Civil Liberties Association and the Canadian Constitution Foundation. And it was actually their arguments to the justice, this federal judge, that had him change his mind on the invocation. At first, he was leaning towards, they were in the right to use it. But then he heard the arguments. No, they were not. And here's why. They argued the fact that it was a police matter. They had an entire response that they created, a whole plan. And that was the same plan that was used to remove the protesters in Ottawa at the end of the day. It wasn't the Emergencies Act. But the Emergencies Act they found was an overreach in the fact that they're freezing bank accounts and they're coming after protesters in a way that was unconstitutional.
Yeah, so they blocked border points also in Windsor and in Alberta.
Yes.
Meanwhile, protesters in the nation's capital parked trucks, large vehicles within key arteries of the city for nearly a month, honking their horns for days on end. I found interesting that the judge said, basically in his argument, do I think this was extreme? Yes, probably, but these were extreme circumstances in which they did invoke this Emergency Act.
Yeah, I can't help but feel terrible for the people who had to live through that.
Yeah.
During the inquiry, which is it was a whole separate commission looking at the Emergencies Act, and they actually found the opposite. They found that the Liberal government was justified in their use of using the act. But you heard the testimony from some of the people living there. One woman who was blind, couldn't even leave her apartment for over a month, because she was being targeted every time she walked out the door and couldn't see. It was horrific, some of the things that they went through. But again, at the end of the day, a lot of people are already reading into this that people should be more upset with the municipality in Ottawa with the police services. Hello, why didn't you do your job? Why didn't you believe the intelligence that was coming in saying that we had all these truckers and protesters coming up to take over the city of Ottawa? And then the government of Ontario, Sylvia Jones, she was a Solicitor General at the time during the Freedom Convoy, or so-called Freedom Convoy, I should say, that's what they call it. She's now standing behind the federal government in their use of it.
Where do you ever see
I know
the Ontario PC government agreeing with the feds?
So why would they?
Government?
Probably because they're in part to blame. They should have stepped up. They should have done more before it got to the federal government's hands.
Well, and that was the federal court justice Richard Mosley said, yes, this did affect, it caused harm to the economy. It caused harm to trade and commerce. However, it did not rise to the level of a threat to national security. And that's where that Emergency Act comes in.
And when we're talking national security, we're talking Canada's a big country.
Yeah.
At the time of the invocation of the Emergencies Act, February 14th, 2022, Coutts and Alberta cleared. The RCMP dealt with that. They were gone. The Windsor border, the Ambassador Bridge, also gone. So now we're just dealing with Ottawa. That's not a national security threat.
Do you get the sense that this may embolden another so-called Freedom Convoy protest? I mean, we've heard stories about these camps or, these plans and whether they do this again. We've heard the million person March for Children or whatever they're calling it. Do you think this will embolden more things like this?
I think that's a great question. I think one point is that this decision, I should say, by the federal judge does not vindicate the protesters. However, so I don't think that is going to embolden them. But the fact that all levels of government haven't come together since and said, okay, what should our response have been? How do we make this better? Could we be introducing further legislation? Should we be changing the Emergencies Act in preparation of future protests like this?
The decision, federal government is going to appeal this.
Yes.
And there's no monetary award to this. This was basically just a federal judge saying, yeah, I think they were wrong to invoke it.
So here's what happens now. It's yet to be seen if any of these protesters who had their bank accounts frozen will sue the government. So they're opening themselves up potentially to litigation here. Not only that, the re-litigation of this by going through an appeal is taxpayer dollars. So this is going to cost a lot of money and time. If you think about the Justice Department to be putting resources and time to appealing this, they could have just said, okay, we take it. Thank you. We respect the law and we will move forward.
Not helping Justin Trudeau's sagging popularity right now.
No, and I think that other people should realize as well, if this was the Conservative government that decided to invoke the Emergencies Act, I think people would be just as outraged, maybe even more so. I don't know. But no, this doesn't help his popularity. Even this week, it was kind of interesting. We had a Newfoundland MP, a Liberal MP that we heard from. He spoke with CBC Radio Canada saying it might be time for a leadership review. A day later, 180 on that statement because it came the day before Trudeau was set to address his caucus. Can you imagine? You have one of your own saying, people hate him, so we should maybe.
Caucus meetings going on this week in Montreal,
yes,
right?
Yeah, and Trudeau had his big speech yesterday. So it came the day before that. We had a Liberal MP saying could be time for a leadership review.
Also pretty telling that it wasn't the Prime Minister who was in front of this. He put Chrystia Freeland front and center. You want to be Deputy Prime Minister? This is what you got to deal with.
You got to take the fall here. But not just that, take the fall. David Lametti, that was big news that broke yesterday, Thursday. He resigned.
Yeah.
And he was shuffled out of cabinet last summer. And that was a shock to him, too. He was the Justice Minister and Attorney General of Canada during the Emergencies Act time and was the one who proposed using it. And now he's out of politics. He says with mixed emotions. He still believes he was in the right to say the Emergencies Act was fair.
Yep.
But yeah, we're still waiting to hear if this has something to do with it as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty worried about. I'm not too worried about this. I'm worried about what's going on down south.
Yeah.
We talk about this.
The Canadian Civil Liberties Association said this was a win for Canadian democracy.
Okay.
When we're talking about American democracy, little shaky at the moment.
All right. It was another busy week for former U.S. President Donald Trump, current frontrunner for the Republican nomination. It started with some good news for him on Monday as Ron DeSantis says, I'm done. I'm out. Kind of saw this coming, canceled his appearances on the Sunday talk shows, the political roundtable discussions that happened on Sunday in the States. Then on Monday, he makes it official saying, I'm going to drop out. Tuesday are the primaries, and a pretty interesting result. Donald Trump expected to win double digits, got pretty close there, high single digits, but a relatively convincing win for him in New Hampshire.
Yeah, definitely not a landslide, though, that was being predicted. I think if it was a major win for him, like Iowa, Nikki Haley, I don't see continuing on. However, we're waiting to see what will happen next then in South Carolina. She was the former governor of South Carolina, so maybe she has some weight there.
She's pretty defiant right now. She went on stage, and I thought it was pretty funny that, she went on first and said, this was a big win for us. We didn't win, but this was big for us. And then Donald Trump comes on afterwards and makes fun of her dress, which was just like a pointed, like she comes out in this fancy dress that maybe not so fancy. Who knows? But it may be fancy. It may not be fancy. Just fixated on the tiniest little things. And I think it's pretty interesting that you got the Republican National Committee, the RNC, basically saying he's our presumed nominee. They've gone through 2 states. New Hampshire, which is mostly independents, which helped Nikki Haley for sure.
Yes.
And Iowa, which was 56,000 total votes. And they are ready to say, this is over.
Exactly.
While he's facing 91 indictments, not to mention a criminal case, which he was front and center all week this week and was trending even today. Like, I don't get it, Nicole. Please explain it to me.
You're telling me I don't get it either.
Like,
I just shake my head sometimes when I look at what's going on. He's a bully. He's a liar. Everything that comes out of his mouth is a lie. And I don't understand why the American people seem to just bypass the fact that this man, sure, it was a civil jury, was accused of rape and found guilty. We know that there have been so many sexual assault allegations, not to mention the fraudulent claims, complete lie that the 2020 election was rigged. It was not. You have other Republicans that have said, no, it was not rigged. This was the result of the American people. And he's made claims that he will pretty much have the United States in a bag. It'll be Trump's land. He will continue being president for as long as he wants. He's joked about that, but is he serious? We don't know.
It's really like, so he took to Twitter. First of all, he stormed out of his E. Jean Carroll case.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Today. He testified yesterday. He was on the stand for all of a minute. He got admonished by the judge again. His lawyer has been admonished by the judge again. Basically told her, watch yourself because you are bordering on lock you up territory. He took to Truth Social earlier today. He says Judge Kaplan refuses to allow the Anderson Cooper interview on CNN of E. Jean Carroll, wherein Carroll says rape is sexy and numerous other things that totally exonerate me. Judge Kaplan is refusing me my constitutional right to due process to defend myself against this false accusation. This is a one-sided trial where the other side is allowed everything and we are allowed nothing. He is an extremely abusive individual. And he finished it off with a classic Trumpism, the likes of which few have ever seen before. Mm-hmm. He loves that line. It's always something. And you mentioned everything out of his mouth is a lie. It's either a lie, and John Heilman is a MSNBC contributor, basically covers U.S. politics. He said he's come up with this theory that everything Trump says is either a projection or admission.
Oh, I like that.
Right?
That
like everything he says is either, I did this, so now I'm accusing you of doing it. So he's accusing Nikki Haley of stealing the election, right? Like,
I want to backtrack on everything he says is a lie. Because people are starting to come after his mental stability at this time. He's 77 years old, but he has made statements like saying Nikki Haley was somehow in charge of 10,000 troops. Nikki Haley was in charge during the insurrection on January 6th. She wasn't even in the country on January 6th. He was talking about Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. He talked about running against Obama. Trump.
She's the bird brain, though. She's the
you
bird
never,
brain.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, you never ran against Obama. I don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, some of the things he says, it's like, I don't even know if he knows factually what he's saying is wrong or where he's at.
So after winning in New Hampshire, Trump declared that anyone who donates to Haley from now on will be, quote, permanently barred from the MAGA camp. What did Nikki Haley do? Well, she went and raised $1.2 million in one day after that threat.
Go, Nikki. That's my opinion.
So Nikki Haley's saying all this. Governor Sununu, we talked about this last week. Governor Sununu of New Hampshire was out there basically attacking Donald Trump for saying, he's not all there. He's not ready. But at a certain point, he might be the nominee. And Nikki Haley, like everyone before him, is going to do the same thing that they've done, which is kiss that ring.
You think Nikki Haley will?
Without a doubt. He made fun of Ted Cruz's wife, right?
I know.
Called her ugly.
Ron DeSantis, disacrimonious.
Every single person who in the RNC who has said ill of him has changed their mind just to kiss the ring.
I don't know if you've seen on X this week, but there's a clip of Lindsey Graham that has already made its rounds again, where he said back in 2015, he said, you don't want to make America great again?
Donald Trump would go home.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I think to hell.
Yeah.
If that's his home, I don't know. But yeah, so we'll see what Nikki Haley does if she does drop out of the race.
South Carolina's GOP president is saying Nikki Haley should be ready for anything in South Carolina.
Well, a lot of the people
that for home state dirty tricks.
Well, a lot of people who worked under her when she was the governor have already endorsed Trump. But so we'll see what that says.
Well, same time next week, same topic.
No,
we'll try to find something else. Nicole Martin, I know you're very busy, so thanks for making the time.
Thank you, Louie.
All right, my thanks to Nicole Martin for joining me. And as we shift gears here, Hockey Canada. The 2018 World Junior team was trending this week after huge news as 5 players from Canada's 2018 World Junior team have taken a leave of absence from their NHL clubs, and it's raising some eyebrows. As their absences come right as a report from the Globe and Mail claim that 5 members of that 2018 team have been asked to surrender to police in London to face sexual assault charges. Michael McLeod and Cal Foote of the New Jersey Devils, Carter Hart of the Philadelphia Flyers, Dylan Dubé of the Calgary Flames, and former NHLer Alex Formenton, who's now playing in Europe, have all been granted indefinite leave, with the absences all announced in the past 5 days. Now, the Flyers and Swiss club HC Ambri Piotta cited personal reasons for Hart and Formenton's leaves, and the Swiss club also said Formenton has been allowed to return to Canada. The Flames cited Dubé's mental health, and the Devils did not give a reason when announcing McLeod and Foote were on leave. Now, a spokesman for the London police did not confirm the report when contacted by Trending Now, but did say in a statement, "We understand that there is significant public interest in relation to a sexual assault investigation dating back to 2018. While we are unable to provide an update at this time, the London Police Service will hold a press conference on February 5th to share further details." And unfortunately, from one sexual assault investigation to another lawsuit alleging sexual assault, this being in the WWE, a very busy week for the WWE, and Manesa Dhanabalan has been covering that stories for us this week. And Manesa, this should have been the WWE's golden week, right? They were getting a huge payout. They were the first kind of live sports deal on Netflix. Let's start with that one. That was a huge deal earlier in the week.
Yeah, it was huge because after 31 years, I believe, they were being they were going into streaming and stuff like that for the first time, right? Like obviously in the States, it's on Peacock and stuff like that, but that's only certain things. So this was a huge deal for them to actually, because they were getting a win because they were getting the money they wanted. And then Netflix, it was a win for them too because they're getting a different kind of audience, right? Because think about it, it really is a different kind of audience that you are getting, especially with WWE. There's thousands, millions of people who watch it. So it's
WWE had always had a pay-per-view model, right? They had their Monday Night Raw, their Wednesday Night Edge, or whatever they call it. I don't know what it is anymore. But this is the Netflix's biggest jump into live entertainment in a deal that's going to pay, $500 million a year?
I think
it's a 10-year, $5 billion deal.
I think so. Yeah, I'm blanking on the numbers. Right now.
The 10-year deal is valued at more than $5 billion, according to a company filing. And Netflix will have the option to exit the deal after 5 years and to extend it for another one. What people you talk to, and we're going to get to the latest WWE revelation that you've been talking to people about this, but let's go back earlier this week. Is this good for wrestling fans based on what?
Well, wrestling fans who are already subscribers to Netflix, it's like no difference for them because like they don't have to pay additional costs to watch all the WWE products, right? But for people who don't have Netflix or something like that, they have to go subscribe. So that might be an additional cost. But the way I see it, I feel like I don't know. Like, do you subscribe? Like, do you pay for wrestling?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I was a wrestling fan like when I was in like grade 7.
Okay.
Like my friend was like, me and my buddies were like into it for like 6 months, and then I just completely lost interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was never a wrestling fan.
What?
No.
That surprises me.
But my best friend back then was, and she would talk about WWE
Really?
all the time. Yeah. That was when I was in middle school, and I was like not for me.
Netflix, of course, is trying to drive revenue by cutting down on subscription sharing, and they're also pushing viewers towards its ad tier membership. I will make a point. I signed up for Disney Plus with ads, and I didn't really notice it too much. It's like a 30-second. You know how like if you're watching a sitcom like on TV, so use Modern Family for example. There's like commercial breaks. It's just one spot. It's 30 seconds, and I don't really mind it.
I don't know. That's how it starts now.
Oh, really?
No, I'm just kidding.
You wouldn't sign up. Would you sign up for a cheaper Netflix?
Oh, 100%.
For ads? With ads, though? With
like, it just depends how many commercials, right? So, if it's just like YouTube where it's like 2 commercials and then I could skip if they're going to put like a 10-minute long commercial.
Our camera guy, Keith, was the one who got me onto Netflix with commercials.
How much
cheaper
is
it? It's like $5.99 a month. It's like $20. Netflix is super expensive.
Yeah,
now.
It is.
It's like $20 a month. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe because it's on Netflix, I might watch it.
Maybe.
But that was the good news for WWE. Today, what is this? Vince McMahon, what's he been accused of? What's going on with this story?
So, Vince McMahon and John, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Lauren.
You'll figure it out
John
by 7.
L, yeah, by 7.
You'll figure it out by 7.
But both of them were accused of sexual misconduct and like basically in exchange for money, like pressuring Janelle Grant to have like sexual
she's been
them.
So she signed a deal, right? She had signed a settlement, basically said they were going to pay her $3 million. She got $1 million payment, and they stopped the payment. So that's why she's going forward with this.
And the thing is, after like I was just reading that part of like the document too, where it says she was, even after she signed the NDA, after that, like he was still exploiting. He was trying to exploit her, right? And trying to get her to do these things to entice other people to come back to the WWE.
Yeah. So one of those that's been tied up is Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
It's alleged that Vince McMahon, forced this woman to make a private video to send to Lesnar. I mean, the details. I don't know how detailed you're getting into this. It might need a warning because I was watching X yesterday, following the trend. Like a lot of people saying this is some of the most disgusting, demeaning allegations that we've ever heard.
It is crazy because I was talking to Alex Hicks, the YouTuber that we spoke to in the past, and basically he was like, the 67-page document is like, it's so vulgar. There is so many things that for people, it would be very triggering because it's a lot. And even when I was reading it too, like I was like, oh my God, like this is like
disgusting.
It's disgusting.
I mean, the sexual
violence, a lot of it. It's
so WWE's parent company, TKO Group Holdings, said in a statement, Mr. McMahon does not control TKO, nor does he oversee the day-to-day operations of WWE. While this matter predates our TKO executive team's tenure at the company, we take Ms. Grant's horrific allegations very seriously and are addressing this matter internally. Not exactly a ringing endorsement for Vince McMahon.
No, it's not. And a lot of people are calling for him to step down. A lot of people aren't surprised. Let me just say that here, because if you see what's going on social media, he stepped down in 2022, because the company was going to do because of sexual misconduct allegations, stuff like that.
Because of this woman, Miss Grant.
Yeah. So he stepped down, and then they did an investigation or something. He came back afterwards as the chair in January 2023 or something, and they had to see this coming.
Yeah. So the 78-year-old was replaced as acting chief executive and chairperson by his daughter, Stephanie McMahon. That was when this investigation happened back in 2022. But yeah, back in 2023, a year ago, he returned as a chairperson as the investigation ended. In yesterday's legal filing, Ms. Grant called the WWE's special committee investigation a sham and then accused the company of attempting to sweep the matter under the rug. This is not a great week for a week that started so promising for WWE did not end the way they wanted it to.
Well, it was boiling up. I mean, something like this was bound to come out at some point,
especially after signing a $5 billion deal with Netflix. Maybe something you wanted to come out before that deal if you're Netflix, because that's the other thing. Is Netflix saying anything? Netflix just paid for this huge property. Netflix hasn't said
that is a great point. I'll have to double check that as well.
I'll let you get back to the story. Before you let me know if you got big plans for the weekend.
No.
Really had to think about it.
I really don't have any plans this weekend. I don't have plans on the weekends anymore.
Why not?
I don't know. I just don't
I'm just so exhausted, especially now. I find when I get home, I'm so tired. I have no energy to do something, and I understand the days are getting longer. Barely minute by minute, the days are getting longer. But I'm so over winter. Yeah. I need I'm not sure if you saw Dave Roberts out there with his tan from Cuba. Laura Brody.
Oh, no, I didn't see
Laura
that.
Brody is also, she's one of our crew in the morning here on Morning Live. She was rubbing it in people's faces that she's going on vacation. So I think that's the part that's
going on vacation.
What?
Yes.
When?
February 14th.
Where are you going?
London and France.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a tan vacation.
It's not a tan vacation, but it's still a vacation.
It's going to be, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you.
I didn't mean it like that. You backed up so quick. I didn't mean it like that.
All right.
What are your plans for the weekend?
I got nothing.
And you were just going to make fun of me for not.
Exactly.
You get to a point where there's
I'm allowed to do that. It's
sometimes it feels nice.
Show. I'm allowed to.
Sometimes it feels nice to just do nothing on weekends.
Listen, I know that. As somebody who worked weekends a long time, don't I know that? Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be looking forward to your story coming up at 7 o'clock on Trending Now. Manesa Dhanabalan, my thanks to her for joining us as we continue here on Trending Now, looking back on the week that was. Across the world, we had some trending news in Russia and Ukraine as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees says he's worried that the war in Ukraine has been forgotten as the country prepares to mark 2 years since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. This week, Moscow accused Kiev of shooting down a Russian military transport plane that crashed in a border region near Ukraine. Russia says 74 people aboard were killed, including 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war. Now, Ukraine's military intelligence said a prisoner exchange was supposed to happen, but never did. Now, both Ukraine and Russia are trading blame on who was at fault for the deadly crash. Russia said there were no survivors after the crash and that the plane was carrying 6 crew members, as mentioned, and 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war. Now, in a statement on its website, Ukraine's military intelligence said Kiev wasn't asked to ensure airspace was secure around the Belgorod area like it was in the past when prisoners of war were traded with Russia. And Ukraine added that this could have been planned by Russia to, quote, destabilize the situation in Ukraine and weaken international support for our state. And that's not all, as German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said there will be a next week a European Union special summit to get all of its members to agree on financial aid for Ukraine, and in Washington, senators are trying for a bipartisan deal that would include $61 billion in aid for Ukraine. And in Canada, the defense minister announced this week that the country will contribute another $35 million worth of military equipment to Ukraine as Russia's invasion edges towards the 2-year mark. That's not the only global conflict that we find ourselves in the middle of. And to discuss the latest on the war in Gaza, we're joined by Trending Now producer. We'll get to some light stuff. Yeah. We are going to get to the Academy Awards, but you've been covering this story all day and even before that. And just to let our listeners know, because Story's not going to run till today. I'm just going to read it real quick here. The International Court of Justice is ordering Israel to take steps to prevent death, destruction, and any acts of genocide in Gaza. What does this mean, Laura?
It's a little bit weird.
Okay.
Because they didn't formally say a ceasefire is required, but most of the orders that they put out would kind of require a ceasefire or some form of military halt from Israel.
Wait, okay, so it quotes calling on Israel to, quote, take all measures to prevent a genocide of the Palestinians. All measures you would think would include a ceasefire, but that's not what they're saying.
Yeah, they
stopped short of demand.
Yeah, it seems like they don't want to tell Israel that they can't defend themselves. They're just saying you need to do a better job of doing so because the civilian casualties are getting out of hand. Like, really, so this is part of the update today is that 1,200 people were killed in Israel when Hamas made their initial attack on October 7th. It's been 1,200. There have been additional IDF soldiers who have died, but no civilian casualties on Israel's side. The death toll in Gaza, on the other hand, from what they say, are civilian casualties past 26,000 today. So it is a large difference in the number. And yeah, like I'm not going to sit here and say that Israel doesn't have a right to defend themselves because they do. But after covering this story for 3 months now and just seeing the indiscriminate bombing that happens and the injuries and the casualties that follow in Gaza, I genuinely believe, considering that Israel has one of the best military forces in the world, they can do a much better job at keeping that civilian death toll down.
Well, and the one argument I've seen a couple of times is, they looked at, one of the leaders of Hamas that was killed in a very targeted attack in another country outside of Palestine, outside of Israel, and said, you can do this, you can have this very targeted, but you need to carpet bomb hospitals to try to get, Hamas out of them. There's not a better way. And because Hamas is still operating and they are still firing back at Israeli forces as well. They release videos, Hamas, and show what they're up to kind of thing. And their capabilities are almost laughable in comparison. So like you said, I don't know how they can't carry out more targeted. Yeah. I don't normally do this because it's a podcast and there's no such thing as breaking news on a podcast because we're taping it. But I am going to say that Nicole Martin, who was just here a few minutes ago, has sent an email that says a verdict has been reached in E.G. Carroll's defamation damages trial against Trump. A jury has reached a verdict, and it's expected to be read in court shortly.
Of course.
So
we're busy today.
You're gonna have to go relatively soon. Make sure you watch Trending Now tonight for the latest on that one. But I do want to get to the Academy Awards.
Fridays are supposed to be easy.
Pre-tape. Sorry, that's the
we're gonna do your
special word
Don't worry.
Use here on Fridays.
Don't worry.
A lot. But let's talk about the Academy Awards. Barbie is getting a lot of people talking Barbie, basically saying this is the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling is celebrated. Greta Gerwig, nothing. Margot Robbie, nothing. How are you feeling about the whole Barbie snubs?
I feel like the conversation of just Ken is not respecting the fact that America Ferrera got nominated for her role in the movie.
She had the iconic monologue.
Yes.
Right?
So a woman did get nominated. I'm going to get a little spicy controversial here. I don't think Margot Robbie did anything worthy of an Academy Award in that movie, to be honest.
Shocked.
I think Greta Gerwig deserved an...
I'm shocked. I'm just choking on the shock here of you.
I think Greta Gerwig definitely deserved a nomination. I think, I'm not opposed to America getting nominated. I think, again, the point of the movie, womanhood, but Ryan Gosling crushed it. But yeah, I didn't think Margot did anything like outstanding. But
She's Barbie. She was the perfect Barbie.
Yeah, she was
Who could have
Barbie,
seen
but
anyone
I
else?
don't know. It wasn't like a Academy Award winning performance to me. But yes, no, I think Greta. My thing with the Oscars is always like, how are you gonna
#Oscars so white?
Well, yeah, but they do these things where they'll nominate movies for stuff, but then won't nominate people within the movies. So I don't know if you remember when like Parasite was big in there. They nominated all of the technical people involved in Parasite and the movie as a whole, but they didn't nominate any of the actors. And I'm like, how are you going to have a movie win Best Picture, but none of the actors were nominated for Best Acting? And I think the same thing can go for a director. Like, I know the Best Picture category is 10, and I believe the Best Director is only 5. But yeah.
Anyone you were like super excited to see like nominated?
Justice for Zac Efron. I wanted him to be nominated.
Oh yeah,
and
that movie got nothing.
It got nothing.
It got nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Iron Claw or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So out of Best Picture, American Fiction. You seen it yet?
Not yet.
Anatomy of a Fall.
Not yet.
Barbie.
Yes.
Holdovers.
No, I'm going on Tuesday.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
No.
Maestro.
Oh God, no.
Oppenheimer.
Yes.
What, you don't like Maestro?
I hate just Bradley Cooper's
Bradley
Cooper's been rubbing me the wrong way this award season.
Poor Things.
Seeing it on Sunday.
Past
I
Lives,
mean.
Zone of Interest.
No and no. No,
Right.
wait. Zone of Interest. I'm seeing
Are you do you see all of them? Are
on
you gonna
Monday.
make
Zone of Interest. I'm seeing on Monday.
So you're gonna make a plan to see all of them?
Yes.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Speaking of good luck.
One year, actually, I did every single movie that was nominated, even the shorts, even the documentaries. I did every single film. So I'm going to try and do it again this year.
We didn't
I like to have, I like to criticize and like be valid because I'm like, well, I watched them all, so this one sucked.
I'm just hoping there's another contest that maybe I can win this year. We do a contest here, don't we?
It's going to be tough between me and Carly. I don't know.
Do you guys always win it?
Well, Carly wins it all the time, but
Carly's
I'm
very
gunning for
tuned
her.
in. We're gonna
Carly,
get
Carly
time-
knows, before you cut me off, Carly
Yeah.
knows that I had a little bit of a beef with her when she first started working here again. Because she beat me in the Oscar pool by 1 point, and I was like, she doesn't even work here, because at the time she didn't. So I had a bit of a beef with her when she first started because I felt she stole that from me.
Real quick, Tucker Carlson was in Alberta this week. Thoughts?
Could you hear my eye roll?
I could hear it through the microphone.
I have no thoughts. I don't understand. He's not a comedian. He's not a singer. He's not a musician. What is this tour? Just like
He's liberating Canada.
he's spewing
He's liberating us.
falsehoods. But people, well, I wouldn't say people paid to see it because they got a lot of rich people to buy the tickets and then just give them to the average Joes for free.
Ready?
Oh, no.
Sorry. Former President Donald Trump must pay writer E. Jean Carroll over $83 million in damages for repeatedly defaming her.
Yo,
A
can I
jury
get defamed
found
by Donald
Friday. Trump had already been found liable for defaming Carroll while he was president, so this jury was only tasked with determining how much she should be paid. She had asked the jury, Roberta Kaplan, Carroll's lawyer, for at least $24 million for the harm she suffered and lots of money in punitive damages to stop him from continuing to defame her. And the jury just moments ago taking a whole 2 hours to deliberate
Well,
this
you
is saying
can't be
Trump's
too
got to pay
surprised.
$83 million.
No, but like the speed of the jury, you can't be too surprised because every time he got in that courtroom, he defamed her again.
Well, looks like you're gonna have to rework something. Maybe we'll get to it on Monday.
Can I say FML? I don't know.
Get back to work, Laura. Get back
It's
to work.
almost 5.
Thanks for doing this. Don't tell people when we record this. All right, thanks for doing this.
Louie.
All right, my thanks to Laura Sebben. There she goes for joining me. And my thanks to you as well, because that'll do it for us here today on the Trending Now podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you follow Trending Now on all of our various social media channels. That, of course, includes on X or Twitter. Includes on YouTube and TikTok. All of those at Trending Now CHCH. You also subscribe to us on Snapchat by subscribing to CHCH Trending Now. Meanwhile, while you're busy subscribing, make sure to subscribe to CHCH Podcasts, where you can find all your favorite shows, including this show and Newsmakers, the Morning Live Recap, and of course, the first week of Sportsline with Bubba O'Neill. Yeah, Sportsline, the podcast. Go check out a great week of shows for that, and congrats to Bubba for kicking that off. My thanks to Mike Corsten for directing today's show, and one more time, thank you for joining us. From all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Butko, hoping to have you a great weekend.